Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep Final Mix playthrough. It is time for the penultimate part of Terra's story.
I do for friendship.
So, here we are. The Badlands have finally been presented as the Keyblade Graveyard. And it's a dark, desolate place. What's actually quite fascinating though is that in the logo for the world, the capital letters each resemble elements of main character's main keys. So the K has a resemblance to Earthshaker, the E resembles the teeth of Ven's Wayward Wind, the G bears similarity to the god of Rainfell, which is Aqua's, and Wayward Wind being Ventus's, and the D resembles the god of the Kingdom Key, with Keychain. However, it features Sora's crown pendant rather than the hidden Mickey symbol, which is Mickey's version. You can also see the teeth bits of Oblivion, Oathkeeper, Sleeping Lion, Follow the Wind, Circle of Life, and Fenrir, as well as the keychain of Master Xehanort's Keyblade coming out of the bottom of the world icon, which is quite a cool thing. There's only 3 areas to the Keyblade Graveyard: the Seat of War, where you enter, Twisted Trench, which is where we are in right now. And then there is one more area, which is your final resting place, effectively, before the final boss of the game. And it's an interesting area. So in Twisted Trench, obviously there are all these massive twisters, and it's quite interesting because there are a set collection of enemies that you can face in one of these twisters. So if you end up in a twister and you see like the first enemies, you'll know pretty much what you're going to end up with throughout the rest of your journey. And yeah, I probably should not be using the PhD link right now, because at this point I'd hardly ever used it, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But yes, most of the enemy selections are pretty okay. Like, if you see a bruiser in your first round, then you know that you're going to end up with these guys in your last round, which they're okay to defeat. The one that I would say is my least favourite in terms of the twisters is there's one where you get to face down a bunch of really large enemies, and that just ends up being really frustrating as a fight. So it's not one that I would necessarily advise in terms of taking down, but you kind of have to, because there is no way in hell you are going to know what is in the twister until it hits you. And actually, here's the one with the giant enemies. It begins okay, like giant floods, but then it throws a giant one of the hourglasses, and then you've got everything blooming flying. And I mean, particularly with Terra, this is a nightmare, because you can't really see what's going on. It follows through with all the characters, actually, but you can't see what's going on, and you can't necessarily always jump high enough to hit them because they're so big. They're sort of generally living just out of reach above you. So you probably are going to want to use like the shot locks to take them down because it will make it a little bit easier. Also things like Viraga attacks. These guys, less of a pain, but still somewhat painful. So yeah, this is definitely my least favourite of the Twister types. Because it's the one that you are most likely to die in. And you see, I have finally seen that actually making use of my D-links and levelling them up is a good idea. It's just, it's a little bit too little too late, if you ask me. But there we go. I did eventually learn and realise coming into Ven and Aqua's story, so they definitely get the most use out of the D-links, so that is definitely good. Also, probably shouldn't go into this because I needed to heal, but then I'm not going to be able to actually fully heal. But that said, I am getting in some potentially slightly more helpful moves to take on what we're taking on. Also, pass me please, seriously, look at what commands you've selected and realise that you do not have a Kiraga in there. You really need a Kiraga in here because you are not that good at the game. And oh, this is going to be a good one. I like this particular command because bringing those two together creates Mega Flare, which is definitely an absolute beast. It's basically a complete screen nuke. Doesn't always kill off everything that you are going to face, but it can cause some pretty decent damage. And there we go, finally realised, yeah, I kind of do need a Kiraga. I'll give myself 2, because that will help out in the long run. And I think, that yes, that is actually the last sticker that we needed for Terra. So that means that the sticker album is complete. However, we're not quite done here yet because, as you can see, we didn't get up to 140p for points redeemable. We're 6p short. And that is entirely linked to where you position the stickers. Effectively, you've got to make sure that everything is sparkling and in a kind of completely ideal location. It's a little bit finicky to ensure that everything is completely perfect. Like, the only indicator that you have that it's in a sort of correct position is that sparkle. But it's difficult because you see, like, that, it's just like, well, why does that go there? But then moving that over there got me full. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense. It's a bit frustrating. That said, it is something that I would recommend you do, because in getting to that max level, you get Rhythm Mixer, which is definitely one of the most awesome command styles. It sounds a bit ridiculous when you're playing it, because it goes all kind of rhythm gamey type thing. You get like a bit of wub wub and so on and so forth with your attacks, which is quite fun, but it can cause great amounts of damage to bosses if you manage to get them in the finish attack. So it's certainly something that I would recommend going for. Also, getting all of the stickers means that you... Oh, well, actually, here we go. Here's Rhythm Mixer itself. Ridiculous, but really fun. And yeah, getting all the stickers ultimately gives you a delightful trophy at the end of it. So it's certainly something that I would recommend getting. Annoyingly, you don't get it until so late in the game, so you don't properly get to enjoy all of it. But still, you will be seeing a bit more of Rhythm Mixer, because as you might have guessed, well, you might not have necessarily guessed, because you might have thought this might have been the final part of Terra Story, but not quite, as I said at the start. This is the penultimate part. The reason for that is that we are actually going to go visit the Mirage Arena. Part of me is just like, well, why did you do this now? But then part of me is also like, well, technically I kind of have to. Because in order to fully complete the game, in terms of, getting final episode that exists, you need to get all of the Xehanort reports. It's a pretty common thing throughout the Kingdom Hearts franchise at this point. And one of them is hidden away in the Mirage Arena, and I believe you need to take down, it's about 5 of the challenges in the Mirage Arena before it will open up and offer that to you. So we're going to go do that before we take on the end of the game, which it makes sense. And yeah, that delight that was Windcutter did Boogerall, also Mega Flare did Boogerall. I think it was because I was kind of slightly out of range to fully cause any damage on them, because I have seen instances where Mega Flare does just completely obliterate enemies, and it is beautiful. But sometimes it just doesn't end up happening just as it probably should do. So yes, one of the things I would also recommend, I know I've said this a lot, despite the fact that, probably most people have played this game by this point, and if you're watching this, probably don't necessarily need the help. But either way, if anybody who hasn't played Birth by Sleep yet and is wanting to and needs a little bit of assistance, I would say definitely take on all of the Twisters, because while some of them are particularly challenging to face down, they do give you very good experience, and as I said, you probably want to be around level 40 actually with Terra. You might be able to get away with level 35, I don't know, I can't remember exactly what level I was when I finished Terra's story, but still, there's all our treasures, so that's another thing complete, and I'm super happy with that. Definitely not going to get very high on all the others, but that's okay, because I wasn't aiming to 100% the reports, because as I said, it's a playthrough, not a walkthrough. I will actually mostly sort of complete Aqua's report to an extent, but certainly for Terra and Van, it's not happening. But yes, here we are at the final resting place before the final boss. So we're definitely saving up, because for the love of God, why would I not? And oh yes, this place is just called the Fissure, which makes sense. But yes, if you want to go and finish Terra's story, go right ahead. You just need to run straight towards that glowing light, and that'll do you good. But that's not what I am going to be doing. I'm still rather frustrated that I haven't used break time, because break time's actually quite funny. It doesn't really do much good outside of allowing you to restore a bit of health, but you're not ever going to want to use it in combat, because it just means that you're going to be completely out on your arse because an enemy's going to hit you whilst you're in the middle of that command, and then it's going to stop you from healing, and therefore you've just wasted your time. Now, I would say I'll go back down to the level below in order to make sure that I do the great thing in terms of getting like the full extent of Terra's finishing commands. But once again, it's not going to happen. I'm not that much of a crazy person in terms of putting in that much effort. One of the things I probably should note as well is that the twisters stay gone whilst you are within the Keyblade Graveyard, so if you beat them all and stick there, they're not going to respawn. You've got to leave the world and come back in for them to respawn. But another way of doing a good job of healing, well, not necessarily healing, but improving your levels is the Mirage Arena. You can choose the colour for your armour, so you can make yourself whatever hue you like, and basically you can take part in arena battles, the command board, or rumble racing for medals, which you can use at the Moogle shop, which is great, but also completing them generally nets you extra health, extra other things. It's a really good way of maxing everything out, and it is really a good place to grind levels, because there are always enemies here, you can always go kill them. Some challenges are better than others in terms of leveling up, and obviously it's the more challenging ones that give you more experience points, but still it's quite fun. I do really like this as a distraction, and yes, we are going to get full joy out of Rhythm Mixer. So it's not going quite so well here because, you know, I've beaten around and there weren't enough enemies to make use of that. But that finisher, the gist is that you press the button that's got the crosshairs over it and you get a bigger burst, and that's pretty awesome. And yeah, that final move can cause some great damage in terms of attacking your opponents. It's great. So, the Mirage Arena. We will be spending a lot more time here with Aqua, because I will actually be trying to show off all of the Mirage Arena battles. I'm not going to show all of them. There's two that I'm going to miss, because they are the super secret optional bosses. I'm going to try and show off all of the sort of regular Mirage Arena bosses, but this is the first of them. Iron Imprisoner 1, which obviously indicates that there are more variants of him, and he's actually quite a challenging fight. This version is not too bad. His biggest challenge is that, you know, he digs into the ground and then can burst up and cause a bit of damage. Also, doing this fight, oh yeah, he also does this spinny move, which does cause quite a bit of challenge if you aren't prepared for it. Obviously, as you progress through the Mirage Arena, you're going to be coming up against much more challenging versions of this guy. So, making use of shot locks, definitely a good shout, but also really mastering the combat system is a great idea. So, The Mirage Arena itself was designed to be the place for arena battles and multiplayer content. Previously, you only got the arena matches in Olympus Coliseum, and multiplayer was only ever played in a special mode outside of the main game. It's like the mission mode in 358 Over 2 Days. But they decided against that. So the idea, when it was originally on PSP, was that you were able to hook up with your friends and take on these challenges together, which would certainly make a lot of them a lot easier. Like, so much easier. But also, you could do things like rumble racing on the command board against each other, which is really quite cool because we've got that variety. Apparently they were actually going to have a bit of a story element initially to the Mirage Arena, rather than be completely distant from everything. They'd planned for Laguna Loire from Final Fantasy VIII to appear in the arena as its head, but they were also planning Dissidia 12 Final Fantasy at the same time, and decided that if Laguna appeared in Birth by Sleep, he couldn't appear in Dissidia. So they eventually decided that they'd rather have him in the latter, so he ended up being left out of Birth by Sleep. Probably for the best, I think, because I feel like this works better. And the other thing that the multiplayer bit added is that there was actually a versus mode, so you could face your friends in battle. So you can have team matches and free-for-all matches available with up to 6 players participating with pre-made command decks, or up to 3 with their own decks. So really, you could have ended up with some pretty chaotic fights, which is kind of crazy. And that's part of the reason why when you initially enter the Mirage Arena, you're able to choose your colour, so you could personalise your Ventus Terra and Aqua to look exactly how you want them to. And that's quite awesome. Should also point out, so in arena mode, which is what we're doing at the minute, players obviously face off against rounds of enemies, and you can get up to 3 players in on this fun. The command board is up to 3 players, and the host is free to choose the location of the boards. And then rumble racing, you can actually get up to 6 players participating, which is quite crazy, but makes sense. I don't know whether anybody actually did do 6-player versus rumble racing Mirage Arenas at all, but I like that they thought of that as a thing to do, and why not? Now, the other thing with the Mirage Arena that needs to be pointed out is that you unlock different matches in the arena mode depending on how many kind of matches you've gone through, effectively. So initially I thought that it was entirely down to your performance in them, and it's not that at all. It's just you've got to complete them. So you just seeing if I can get the straight unlock list, but it's not looking likely. But basically you get Day of Reckoning from the off, and actually in Final Mix you also get Monster of the Sea from the off, which is an optional one that you can do. And then as you progress, you unlock Wills of Misfortune, which is what we've just done, and Weaver Fever. Oh no, I think we did Weaver Fever. I think this one might be Wills of Misfortune. It might also be Sinister Sentinel. I don't honestly know. But the gist is, do the challenges, it'll level up the arena and more matches will become available. The only issue is that as you get later on down the line, the only way of getting them to turn up and level up the arena is to make sure that you complete the clan boards and the rumble racing races as well. So you've got to make sure that you actually defeat all of those if you want to fully level up the arena and get all of the challenges available to you. And I believe in order to get the sort of top 2 final biggest challenges that the game has to offer, you've definitely got to do that. But I believe there may be something else as well in terms of getting up to, I think it's level 30 that is your top level that you can hit. In the original Birth by Sleep, I believe, potentially while you could get up to level 30, everything unlocked at level 25, although they might have shifted it about a teeny weeny bit. Also, can I just say how much I love Meteor Crash? Such a fun, epic move. I love it. And also you can see during this that I'm desperately trying to get all of my blocks in, because my brain's thinking I want to master all of these and get all those extra medals because they can be helpful, when really what I should be thinking about is just get through the bloody things, because you're not actually going to spend any decent length of time in the Mirage Arena with Terra because you're not a crazy person. And actually you're only here to get to, I think it's the end of either Sinister Sentinel, I think it's Sinister Sentinel. Can't blooming speak. Basically, you have to face down Iron in Prisoner 2, I think. Yes. And beating that particular match will net you Xehanort Report 5. And it is actually only in Terra Story, which is kind of annoying that that is the case. But I suppose it gives you a reason to have to at least try the Mirage Arena in what is arguably going to be your first run through the game. I don't know how you are meant to know that that report is there. I'm also not entirely sure whether the game stipulates that you need to make sure that you get all of the reports in order to unlock the final episode. But that is the case, so just got to deal with it, really. But yes, once we're done with the Mirage Arena here, you're not actually going to see it for a very, 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 very long time, right until the end of Aqua's story. And actually, here he is, Iron Imprisoner 2. He has broken out of his prison a little bit. I believe in the first one he was chained up at the top, and now, you know, he's broken free of that and got a massive hammer. So he is definitely more dangerous. He gets more and more dangerous as you go along. I mean, obviously I've really quite obliterated his health there. Shotlocks do a phenomenal job with the guy. But yeah, I'd say the first 3 Iron Imprisoners are not too bad. It's the final Iron Imprisoner that will give you the biggest headache. But yes, that was basically all that I came here to get. So I'm quite happy. All that's left is for us to head back to the Keyblade Graveyard, and I think, if I'm judging myself correctly, I'm going to try to get up to level 35. And yeah, I am indeed correct. So we've got another 5 minutes or so, just making sure that Terra is fully prepared for the final battle to get. Level 40 would be great if you have leveled up that much. That would certainly put you in a very safe position for Terra's final boss fights. I mean, arguably Terra's final bosses are the most difficult, but once again that is primarily because of the whole thing of his dodge being a lot less effective than everybody else's. And also his block being a lot worse than, say, Aqua's. Because Terra's and Ven's as well, their blocks are purely directional, whereas Aqua's covers everywhere around her, which is an absolute godsend for her final boss fights. And just most fights in general. Whereas, obviously, directional blocking can be a bit of a challenge. And finally, I'm making use of the very smart thing of double experience, which means that I'm going to level up a lot quicker, and also, get a little bit of an Ohana beat in here. It completely clashes with the really sad, sorrowful music of the Keyblade Graveyard. I mean, like, it really hideously clashes. But there we go. Also, having mentioned the song, we're not really spoken much about the soundtrack, really, to be fair. Theme for this area is Keyblade Graveyard Horizon, which makes sense. And also, actually, is a unique song in that, as with the theme that played through from the cutscene into the battle in Castle Dreams for Terra, and that sort of sadnessy, sorrowy type song that I can never remember the title of, despite the fact that I really love it as a song. Thunder! Keyblade Graveyard Horizon just plays through no matter where you are in it, which is definitely, I think, quite an effective thing to be doing. And yeah, that was a little bit of a mess, but it's okay because I think that one more twister should give me enough experience points to get up to the level 35 that I have been after. And that is good, because then that means that all we need to do in the next part is go straight onwards to Terra's endgame, which is where we really get full-on tragedy at its peak, really. The finales of the stories of these characters are pretty spectacular. But there we go, level 35, which is where I wanted to be. So yeah, let's just run on back and yeah, save up a little bit. And then it'll just be a case of making sure that everything is ready and waiting for us to go and take on the final boss. Make sure that all of my stuff is set up and ready in terms of, all of my commands and all that jazz, and I think that we should be good. I have to say, I'm not going to be necessarily selecting the best moves for this final boss fight. Arguably far from it. However, we're still going to take it on and be strong in our fight. So, it's really the only way to go. But that should pretty much do it. Stick with explosion, because that's all we're going to get. And yes, let us run into the light towards the end of Terra's story.